Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome everybody to today's webinar, How to Sell More Tickets Mid-Campaign. A little bit of background, I guess, for who we are at Mustard Media. So essentially, we sell tickets. We're a digital agency specializing in festivals and events. And we're lucky enough to work with a whole host of brands in the events industry, from really large-scale 50K events such as your Rolling Louds and Afro Nations, through to destination festivals such as Lost and Found and Trip, and places such as Malta, working with brands like Otium in Morocco, and then down to single-day inner city events such as Park Life in the UK. And what this does really is it gives us a really broad view of the market. We get to see what works in different territories, what works for different events. And hopefully we can distill down all that data and pass on some learnings to you. So how to sell more tickets mid-campaign. This came off the back of a PDF we published, I think towards the end of last year, which was 100 ways to sell more tickets. And what we've found as we're coming out of launch season now, there's a need to address what to do once you've done your launch and then you're sat there scratching thinking, right, what next? Hopefully you've had a great on-sale period, ticket sales are strong, perhaps it hasn't been so good, you need to make up ground, but ultimately there tends to be a point in every campaign where you need more tickets or your current ticket sales slump a little bit. So the purpose of today's session is to pull out some of the best bits from our 50 ways and go into them in a little bit more detail. And then there's opportunity, as Phoebe said at the end, where we can unpack a little bit more, people can ask questions. So that's something that your regular downloaders of the document definitely don't get, and a nice little perk for AIF members. So the first bit we wanted to cover off was strategy. And some of the key strategic learnings and tips we have when you are mid-campaign is setting monthly average sales targets to ensure you reach your goals. I think that's so key because it's what keeps you true. And most importantly with this, it's about that variance to target, which you need to be measuring. Because what we see a lot of is you'll have a really good week and you think, okay, it's a great week. But what that doesn't give you is that wider understanding of how that compares to your overall target. Because if you've had 4 weeks where you've missed target previously and then you have one good week, it needs to be a really, really good week in order to get you back on track. You might still be behind. So what we've found by tracking sales on a weekly basis and having that variance to target percentage, it gives you that view that's much needed. And it means that you're keeping accountable and then you can adjust course as necessary. Just to point out, the illustration there is purely hypothetical, so we're not disclosing any of our own or indeed our client details there in case anyone's worried. The next strategic tip is around paydays. So mid-campaign and you're thinking, right, we need to sell more tickets. It's about understanding how many paydays you have between now and then when the event's going on. So, well, the event is taking place rather. And then what we do is identify, okay, with these payday moments, there's that week before in the run up to payday. And this is your key time. So rather than waiting for the payday itself, you want to be ramping up your marketing in that week before. And as well as that, thinking, what are the key announcements or actions that we can align to these I guess, high intent buying cycles? So this could be day splits. It could be things like set times. Set times are a really interesting one that you probably do in that last payday if the festival's falling quite close to it. Because we're seeing even at that point, by announcing things such as set times themselves, that gives you a spike in website traffic, particularly if you announce the set times on your socials, but then the actual specific times are on the website. That gives you a spike in traffic and we see a spike in sales off that. Same for any of you doing international festivals and you've got add-ons such as boat parties or after parties that you might have held back on. At that announce point, yes, you'll see more tickets go for these specifics, but it always creates a halo effect where weekend or full week festival tickets spike at that point. So understand when those key buying cycles are going to be and then align your key communications around that. And that really maximizes sales and gives you an understanding of what you need to be focusing on between now and the event. Just to add to that, I think if you're thinking, well, I don't have anything to announce, there's lots of things you can make up. So whether that be adding additional ticket tiers you could be running out of, or even just running a competition mid-campaign is a really great way to create a moment out of nothing. The next lever we'll be looking at is around creating urgency. So this is really key, and this is something that often does stall mid-campaign. You find that clients run out of urgency and there's nothing really driving those tickets. So as I said before, you've got that payday cycle, and that week before payday tends to be prime time. So this is where ticket warnings can be a really good tactic for you. The key, however, with these is to get the balance right. You know, I think we have all been guilty of being somewhat spammy with these and perhaps being somewhat bombastic. However, there are ways that we've found where you can drive urgency without falling into any of these pitfalls. So I've got an example there of one asset that we've been running for one of our festivals, Trip in Malta. So what we've done with this is an animated asset running on Meta, and we're showing the tickets tiers that have sold out. So getting in people's heads that things are selling out. And then we're showing the next tiers, and we're just using little bar sliders that animate up and down. So notice we're not putting specific numbers or percentages on these. And I think that's really key. By not doing that, it leaves a little bit to the imagination. And what you're enabling audiences to do there is to probably overestimate how much is being sold whilst not tying you down to specifics. So we'll always advise showing any ticket tiers or add-ons that have sold out, keep them visible, and then show the ones that are selling well. And then the other thing to draw your attention to here, which I'm hoping isn't too much of a test for your eyesight, as this animates, you've got these little circles on the end of each bar. So quite often people get punished for missing out on the previous ticket tier. So what we've been playing with is showing the monetary saving that you make on each tier compared to what the final tier will be. And what that enables you to do is show what, yes, someone might have missed out on the early bird where they could have saved £70, that is. However, they could still buy in tier one and save £50. So that way you're showing people that, yes, they missed out, but you're still showing them that there's still a saving to be made. And we're seeing some really great success off the back of this. The other thing we wanted to draw your attention to was the right-hand example. So to balance that idea of being overly salesy, we've created what we call lo-fi ticket warnings. So rather than being a sales graphic like one on the left, here we're trying to find content that's more social first. So by that, I mean content that people would be sharing and engaging with on social media anyway, something that's either entertaining, educational, or informative, and then attaching a ticket inventory messaging to that. So this example here on the right, again, it's from Trip Festival, and we found this footage of Fisher crowd surfing. Fisher's the lead DJ at this festival. So we had that video, and then we just put the simple caption, point of view, you got the early bird tickets before they sold out. And then the way these worked in tandem was at the start of the week, we'd lead with the one on the left, we'd put paid spend behind it, and then we'd flip that creative over to the one on the right. So you're effectively getting two nudges around tickets. One's a bit more salesy, the other one's a bit more social first. And this combination, this kind of left-right combo, is what we find really moves the needles at the moment. So the next section on how to sell more tickets is really social content. I think there's a real missed trick here. You spend hundreds of thousands, if not maybe more, on lineup and artists. However, we put them in a poster and we leave it at that. And the mistake we're making there is that we're expecting people to know every artist on the lineup, which in an ideal world they would, but the reality is it's not the case. So if you think about it, if you're not aware of all the artists in the lineup, then they mean nothing to you. There's no perceived value there. But what content allows us to do is to instill perceived value. It's the equivalent of the water cooler moment where if you haven't seen the latest Netflix documentary and you walk up to the water cooler and people are chatting about it and you don't know it, haven't seen it, then you can't get involved in the conversation. So you probably just scurry off back to your office. But if someone's told you about it or you've read an article on it, you've immediately got something to contribute. And it's a similar thing with lineups. So a really great example here we've got on the right was from Defected Records. So they were announcing that Eats Everything was playing at their Malta festival. So they could have just gone out with a simple graphic and hope that either people who see it are an Eats Everything fan, in which case, great, they're like, okay, I made up, Eats Everything's playing the festival, it's a reason I might go. However, if you are only loosely aware of Eats Everything, then it's going to be less of a pull for you. So what they did was they created this slider. I think it's a carousel of 6 videos. But the idea was it was 5 reasons why Eats Everything is a legend. Notice they don't lead with the fact that he's playing at the festivals. They lead with this idea around education. And then they basically collated his best bits of video content from around the internet and then titled them. So Athleticism was a famous clip of him catching an ice cube thrown in amnesia from Macioplex. The next one was Works Where He Wants, which that was from when he played in the Brighton Fish and Chip Shop. The third clip was Exceptional Multitasker, which is where he's DJing in a Mini Cooper with Norman Cook. Strong Perseverance was a clip, I think, from a Mixed Mag documentary where he was talking about how he was a month before quitting the industry. He was going to go back to working in HR, and his wife said, look, you've got 30 more days. That's it, you're going to have to give up. And it was just at that point that he had his first track released by Pet Sounds, and everything blew up for him. And then the final one was a clip from Park Life where it was going off, and it says, knows how to have a proper party. So you can see how from one piece of content, if you've either never heard of or only have a passing interest in Eats Everything, Defected are giving you these reasons to care and a way to get involved in the conversations where you're talking to your friends and you're like, oh my God, have you seen that Eats Everything has been added to the Defected lineup? And you can share that information with them, which ultimately we've got this innate desire within all of us that we want to seem like people in the know. And so as a festival, you're enabling people to do that. Now, interestingly, the same thing works for much lesser known artists as well. So if you've got artists on your bill who people don't know of, then by doing the same process and telling people the reasons why you book them and why your booking team think that they should be at your festival or event, tell people that and enable them to be armed with knowledge so that they can say, you know, whoever it might be, oh, so-and-so is playing, and their friends say, well, I've never heard of them. And then they can get that feeling of satisfaction when they're saying, oh, well, did you know they actually had, you know, were #1 rated on BBC Introducing, or, you know, whatever the stats are around it. It doesn't have to be a lot of legwork either. I think this sort of content at the lowest end, it can just be a case of scouring socials and finding viral clips. Facebook's still really good for this because it's got a slightly better search function than Instagram. So you can just search for your artists and then it ranks it in terms of engagement and views, and then just using some sort of online ripping software, you can download the video and then post it natively on your channels. If you've got a bit more time and resource, then you can combine it as Defected Records have done. But, you know, don't think it has to be as produced as Defected Records. It could just be a case of each week showing great content from your lineup. Rather than just scratching ahead and being like, right, we've announced, we've gone on sale, lineup's out there, what do we post now? The other pillar, particularly in post-lineup announcement content, is showing the experience. You know, people buy for the lineup, but arguably the experience of your event or festival is more important these days. This is particularly true of younger generations, and even more so if you're a destination festival, because you're not necessarily selling a festival, you're actually selling a holiday. If you're getting people to travel, you need to be thinking about what does this people's trip look like outside of the programmed hours of music, whether on site to the event. And ideally, you want to allow consumers to preview this experience ahead of time. If you're a first-time event, this is still possible. I think, again, that's a big block we come up against of, well, our festival or event hasn't taken place, what can we do? It's still possible to do it. You just need to be a little bit more creative and put in a little bit more effort. Some really great formats for this are doing daily itineraries. So the example we've got here, again, for Trip from Malta. What we did here was we broke down what each day would look like, but rather than it just be purely, you know, who is playing on that day, we showed the full experience. So starting from the first day you might arrive, we scoured YouTube to find footage of an EasyJet flight that somebody captured of the wing. We had that, touchdown in Malta. Then we showed people what the hotels might look like. We found footage of people opening up the hotel blinds, looking over the harbour. And then we looked at what are the other steps along the way. So whether it be the pre-party at Cafe Del Mar, then it might be cocktails somewhere, and then we got into the lineup and showed the nighttime offering as well. But the same could be said for it doesn't necessarily need to be a destination festival. The same could be said about showing people what it might look like in terms of an inner city festival. So getting the tram into Manchester, getting to Heaton Park for Parklife, that sort of thing, getting wristbands on. So I think it's just really about understanding what are those moments outside, and then how can you show that and allow people to see it and get excited about it. So generally speaking, for a bit of a balance, we'd be looking at a minimum of one experience post and one music-led artist post per week to go out on your socials from the moment that you announce the full lineup. So the next bit of the strategy would be new audiences. So hopefully you've run some sort of sign up, you've got an existing audience, you've gone out for pre-sale, and you're nurturing that data to get more sales. But there quite often will come a time mid-campaign where you kind of feel like you've saturated that audience. And it's at that point when finding a new audience is key to keep sales going. So one thing you can look to do is add new data. A really great way of amplifying this is looking for impactful media partnerships. So this could be media partnerships in terms of like what's on pages or media publications within your sector. So as big as like a Big Flag or a DJ Mag, or getting smaller as well and just being purely online, or looking at companies and brands that have a similar audience to your desired audience. What we've seen work particularly well is run a competition with one of these media partners. So that builds awareness with a new audience, which injects fresh data into your campaign. It's also good as well to give tickets away as part of the prize, because what you get then is if someone wins some tickets, they're going to be talking to their friends, or if someone might stand a chance of winning tickets, they're also going to be talking to their friends. And that's what we want to get going at this point, particularly if you've had a weaker on sale, is you want to get that buzz and a little bit of word of mouth moving, because then that creates a halo effect, which then creates into more sales. So an example here from the Yacht Week, they had their brand partner, Naked, who are sunglass companies. So they did the opportunity to win a cabin for two on Yacht Week, both in Greece, as well as some Naked merchandise. So it was a way of you entering. They did a simple online tag and comment competition, which is great. But I think more powerful is getting email addresses and hard data, because you can then plug that into your paid media, create retargeting audiences, lookalike audiences. So we would probably push for capturing email addresses over getting additional social media followers, but both could work. So that brings us neatly onto email marketing, which is something that we see not ignored, but it tends to be utilized just in one way. So quite often what will happen is you'll spend a lot of time building up sign-up lists. You'll go on sale, you'll hammer them for a week or maybe a little bit longer, and then you probably won't touch base with these people until the next payday or the next big announcement. However, we've found that there's a real opportunity if you tap into the techniques you would normally see for e-commerce a little bit, or particularly for info-based courses online. You'll see a lot of this, and that's where we use a bit of an email funnel. So to make this work, you want to unpack or brainstorm all the potential audience blockers. So what I mean by that, by audience blockers, is reasons why people might have signed up, showed a bit of an interest in your event, but for whatever reason, you've gone on sale, the pre-sale link's gone out and they haven't bought. So that could be anything from they need a little bit more information around, I don't know, on-site accommodation, or perhaps they've been previous years, but they're not sure that there's enough newness at your event to warrant them going back a second year. Or, you might have a niche festival that might be family-based, let's say, and straight away as a parent, you've got way more considerations than your average festival goer. Or if you're a destination festival, suddenly you're going to need to know about accommodation. As we said before, what does the rest of the holiday look like outside of the festival? So a pro tip for this, if you're really struggling to think about it, you can use AI, use ChatGPT, and you can get it to brainstorm audience blockers for you based on your festival type. The more information you give it, the better. But that's particularly great if you're sitting around scratching your head and going, oh, I can't think what my audience blockers are. But the idea being, once you've got these blockers, then you want to create an automated email funnel. So the great thing about an automated email funnel is you only have to write the emails once and then it flows. We generally suggest two ways of using it. Either post this sort of week or 2 weeks post-launch. So you've got that initial spike of sales, but then you want to mop up everybody in your email list who's put themselves forward, but for whatever reason hasn't bought, and do a series of emails. I would say 3 to 5 emails that take people down a marketing funnel. I would advise the first email leads with some sort of value add to leverage the psychology behind reciprocity. So by that, I mean, you've probably hit them with a lot of sales messaging. So what can you just give them that first email that is just a freebie and a nice to have? So this could be, maybe it's an interview with one of your artists. Maybe it's a Spotify playlist. You know, it could be, I'm trying to think of other things on the spot here, but you get the picture, something that's just quite cool. Or let's say your festival isn't a local festival, you've got lots of people traveling, then maybe you could do customized Spotify playlists that are the length of the drive time from key cities, let's say. Lead with that. Then you might want to unpack a little bit more of the experience, you know, give people a real understanding of what it entails. So that could be something like personalized itineraries, and it doesn't need to be specifically personalized, but if you've got their name as part of the sign-up process, then you can use the merge field tags. So the subject might be Rory, your park life itinerary, and straight away it feels really personal. You're going to get a much higher open rate. And then the email just is that what the day at park life might look like. Then the third email, once you've got people bought in with a bit of desire, you then want to lean into, I guess, overcoming any objections. And the first way of doing this could be around social proof. So if you've got any good reviews, if you've got any testimonials, an email with all that. And then finally, look at unblocking those audience blockers. So if you brainstorm some specific blockers, it might be around travel or something, then you could have an email that does that and answer those questions. And then if you can, the final email we see a lot of good results come from is something that's a time-bound offer. So that could be, if they purchase in the next 24 hours, they can buy the previous tier price or something like that. But I mean, that's tends to be quite individual, so I'd leave that up to you to decide what works for your specific event or festival. But straight away, you can see how we're taking them through the email automation down a funnel, and hopefully moving people that were interested but just needed that little bit more of a nudge to buy. We can mop that up. Okay, so the next point I wanted to bring up was around website and ticketing. So the website's normally the last point in the user journey before someone purchasing a ticket, but it's also quite often where you see a lot of drop off. And we don't want to fail at the last hurdle. So we need to make sure that our website is working as hard as possible to do the job that it's meant to do, which is selling that ticket. So some things that are really quick and easy to do is any brand or press partners, adding those to your website. So that creates trust and authority, and that can just be like a little bar along the top, just with the individual logos on. This is particularly important if you are a first-time festival, and you perhaps don't have as much trust and authority with your audience. So this is a great way of borrowing other people's and leveraging it. Building on top of that, if you've got any press or customer testimonials, this is absolutely key. So I'd get those on the website. You can see the example down there. A client of ours had this, don't just take our word for it, and they just screen grabbed some nice feedback, and they got these from social media. so many people either sit on this data within previous customer surveys, or even, as I said, Facebook comments, Instagram comments. So bring this to the front, get it on your website. The other thing as well, and this comes back to the blockers exercise that you would have done before, that has much more application than just the email funnel. If you're uncovering that people have blockers around maybe perhaps not knowing what ticket to buy because there's lots of different ticket choices, then you can use this information on your website and make it really clear. So an example here, festivals broken down, what's included with the ticket and what's not included. I think as our festival events become more complex and we're seeing festival formats that haven't been done before, and it's not just a case of bands in a field, it's more complex and people need to be handheld a little bit more. So use your website to answer any of these objections and make it really clear. If you've got a complicated ticket offering, maybe you break it down so people can easily understand, okay, what ticket's right for me. That could be a simple infographic or a little kind of matrix showing what's included, what's not. I think as well, just as an additional bonus point for that, also think about showing the experience on the website all on the first page. I wouldn't hide away the experience and expect people to land on that first page of the website and click into further pages. You want at least the headlines all in that first page. And again, think of it as a sales funnel. Have a tickets button at the top, probably in the top right, but then also make sure there's opportunity for people to click on a buy tickets button as they move down the page. Okay, moving on to paid media. So I'm going to hand you over to Caitlin, who's going to take this one. So I'll just stop sharing, and Caitlin, if you're ready, share your screen.
Yes. 2 seconds. Don't think it's allowing me. I think it's saying that you can only share.
Ah, sorry.
Just share, and then I'll let you know when to go on the slide.
That's okay. Sorry, throwing you an absolute curveball there. There we go. Okay, guys. Over to Caitlin. Apologies for the delay.
Right. Yes. So paid media. So we're all operating in a very different landscape in comparison to previous years. So you mustn't rely on paid media strategies like previous paid media strategies or campaign structures to work. So here's a couple of pointers to consider when it comes to setting up and optimizing your paid media campaigns. So firstly, implement an evergreen, consistent, but low-level daily spend campaign, especially for any higher ticket price events, which have longer consideration periods. You want to just keep tapping your audience on the shoulder, keep reminding them rather than just on like shouting at them on payday, for example. Reuse your lineup poster. So rather than reposting your lineup poster again with no engagement, consider reusing your initial lineup poster in your paid media funnel. So go back to your original launch post, update the copy and information so it's not out of date, it's got any new information needed, such as like any ticket tier updates, and then reboost this. So all the original engagement shows, and it makes it look like your event is the talk of the town, basically. And then you can retarget any available data. So any users that have added to cart but then not made a purchase, these people are really highly likely to be price conscious. So you want to be retargeting your content to be a bit more price focused. So any information about payment plans or any price increase warnings should be going out to these audiences. Like Rory said before, you need to raise awareness and consideration in the period before payday. So we'd usually say around 7 days before payday, not on actual payday, because otherwise you would have missed the boat by that point. And then finally, if you can create lookalike audiences from existing ticket buyer data or existing audiences you already have on social media, lookalike audiences are created from source audiences, and they share very similar qualities to your existing audiences, and they're really highly likely to engage with your business. So like a 1% lookalike audience would have the most characteristics and behaviours to your existing audience. Next slide, please, Rory. So yeah, TikTok. So I'll go through a couple of tips on how you can best utilize TikTok for your event brand, and a couple of content strategies to consider when implementing this for your marketing campaigns. So if you're not on TikTok, you probably think it's just an app where people do silly little dances, do some lip syncing, but it's, as much as it started off as this, it's much, much bigger than that now. You can probably find every niche community and audience on there. We've seen reports that say 40% of Gen Z now use TikTok as a search engine over Google, and this is predicted to increase amongst the different demographics. Like, people use the app now to find travel destinations, find restaurants, places to go, and the same thing applies for festivals. So the best thing I could say that festivals and events could do on TikTok is show off and visually storytell your whole experience of attending your event through the point of view of the attendee. So to start off with, lo-fi content, UGC style content is king on TikTok. Your over-polished video content with loads of branded graphics just won't work on this platform like they do on Instagram. Your content really needs to look native to the app. You need to hook the users in the first couple of seconds. So I think there was a report from Meta that on mobile, you need to grab someone's attention now in the first 1.7 seconds, which is crazy, but it's what you need to do. Yeah, so the attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So you need to either have like a really striking visual, an engaging question, or a hook that would spark the user's curiosity. And then you need to use the rest of the video to back that captured up or provide further information about your next event. It must use sound as well. And if you're using a voiceover or you're doing a face to camera video, then always use captions on TikTok. And your videos must be full screen and vertical for it to work best. If you're creating content, then you can edit videos within the TikTok app, but I'd recommend an app called CapCut as well. It's really easy to use, and you can save drafts on there, so you can go back, test a few things, test a couple of sounds with these videos. You know, how does the editing of putting different compilation videos together work in certain ways? Keep going back to it, see what works, what doesn't. So yeah, that's one that I'd recommend to edit. But if you're just starting off on TikTok, I'd say to grow your account, you want to be posting quite regularly. I'd say once a day, but if that's not manageable, maybe once every other day or once every 3 days, just to start the algorithm to learning what your content is, what the kind of users, who the users are to who are engaging with your content. And then if you're implementing this into an ad campaign, you should be refreshing your content every 7 to 10 days to avoid creative fatigue. But you need to be consistently posting organically to ultimately help the paid side of things. And then finally, the text overlays, I'd add them in the TikTok app to give context to your video and your brand. And ultimately, it'll help your SEO in the app, but I'll go into more detail on this on the next slide. Please, Rory. Yep, so content strategy on TikTok. So if you're brand new to TikTok, you're not sure what kind of content you should be posting. Like with most things, I'd say to start taking a look at what your competitors are doing, become familiar with what they're posting, but also just other brands in other industries, and then also just what users are posting in general, just getting a good understanding of the type of content that's out there. Take note of what you think works well, what you think doesn't, what can you take inspiration from, and what can you use in your own way. essentially festivals and events want to spark an emotion. They want to essentially instill the fear of missing out. You want the viewer to think, I really need to be at this next event. I really want to experience that myself. So I'd say to do this best in like short compilation videos, different shots of people enjoying themselves, having the time of their lives, then also clips of artists at the festivals, at previous events. And if you have any like unique selling points, any niches of your event, really show that off, whether that's like your location, your stage production, or if your like event is a very specific genre of music, this is your opportunity to really like story tell that to the audience on TikTok. But also understand your audience on TikTok too. So for instance, you could search your brand, search your event on there and see the type of videos that people have uploaded from their experience at your festival. This will give you a good understanding of what people enjoyed, how people communicate about your brand, how they talk about it, and what you should show off more yourself on your videos. One thing I've noticed with some brands when they start off on TikTok, it's not providing enough information or context in the videos. So the way the algorithm works is that your videos are shown to people who follow you, but they're also shown to a lot of people who don't follow you as well. So a lot of people won't have a clue who you are. They might never have heard of you before. So with knowing that, you need to give enough context in your videos of like what you are, who you are, when your event is, so that people can be intrigued by that and want to find out more information. It's not really the platform to be cryptic, and as mentioned before, it's not the platform to be posting really super polished, high graphic video content or static images type thing. Another tip, if you're stuck for content, is to search your brand name. You can discover the top search keywords associated with your brand in the search bar. So these are like the kind of search terms that people are interested in. So for instance, it could be if you search Parklife Festival, outfits will come up. So Parklife have used that in the content strategy for on TikTok. But it's a good thing to know what to use in your content, but then also in your captions, in your hashtags and overlay text. All of this will improve your SEO. So when people are searching for your brand, like they do for travel destinations, your videos are coming to the top, because TikTok will recognize those keywords. And even if it's any artist names, like if you had a certain artist that's that people would engage a lot with on TikTok, having that caption overlay or in the caption on the video, having that on the TikTok will recognise that and serve it to people who are more likely to engage. Even if it's the word festival, TikTok will recognise that and serve it to people who engage with festival related content. But I think it's good to remember to relate the messaging in your videos back to whatever stage in the in your current marketing campaign is at. So for instance, if you start with a video of a hook like "Who remembers this moment at X Festival last year?" and it's a clip of an artist performing and the crowd going wild, but then relate that back at the end of the video with whatever point in the campaign you're up to, like sign up for next year's event, or we're back in June, tier 1 tickets running low. That way you've captured the attention at the very start, but then you've related it back to the event at the end. But at the end of the day, TikTok is an entertainment platform. So if your content is too in your face, too salesy, it doesn't explain what you are, and it doesn't capture people's attention, people are going to get bored very quickly and skip on to the next video. And yeah, next slide, please, Rory. So another strategy to consider is using content creators as part of your social and paid campaigns. Find creators who are relatable and are like just like me to your audience. They'll drive a strong sense of authenticity and effectively build trust and favorability towards your brand. Creators have a unique power to influence your brand perceptions. They can strengthen connections between communities and they can drive huge impact for your campaign. There was a study on TikTok that reported that 64% of users prefer seeing these everyday people who are more relatable advertising brands, and then 71% of users said that these creators have actually motivated them to make a purchase. So the example that I've got here is one we've worked on recently with Hideout Festival. We boosted this creator's video from their own account, which ended up resulting in a triple the engagement, also had a 4 times higher click-through rate compared to ads from the actual brand account, and ultimately drove a really good rate of conversions. But this isn't just relatable for just a Gen Z audience. Like, there are so many niches and communities and audiences on there. So for example, if you're a family festival, there's a lot of family or mum creators out there. So if you've ever worked with any in the past, have you got any scope to potentially use their content for your current campaign and like just repurpose it so it helps your, your content strategy for this year's campaign? Their content is going to be like super relatable to your target audience, as they can place themselves in the point of view of that person. But yeah, overall, using creators as part of your social and ad strategy can have a huge impact on your overall campaign engagement, brand recall, brand perception, and ultimately conversions. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. So if you guys haven't already, we've got the full PDF, so 50 ways to sell more tickets, that has what we've talked about today, but also many, many more across the 8 key areas there. So you can download that at mustmedia.co.uk. We've also got a whole host of other bits of resource on the website. So we've got case studies, we've got other thought leadership articles covering off different problems, different challenges and different successes. And this is a really good resource for some of these challenges that you might be facing. And then if you still want to hear more of us and aren't sick of our voices by now, then we've actually got our podcast, Business Keeps on Dancing, which we do in association with the IA. And this was born out of lockdown when events weren't happening. We really wanted to still contribute to the wider industry, so we partnered with a whole host of brands and a whole host of the key figures. So you see the likes of Graham Park, Kate Osler, John Drake, Mark Fletcher, Simon Dunmore. And we sat down with them and really unpicked their stories and the secrets of their success. So if you want to hear from some of the key figures within the industry and how they've got to where they are and how they built their brands, then this is a really great resource as well. So yeah, check that out at www.businesskeepsondancing.com. Okay, so I think we've got some time now for questions. So Phoebe, are you going to marshal those?
Yes, I will. We've had a few come in pre-event, so I think if we start off with them and then people in the room can chip in either by chat or by putting your hand up.
Awesome.
So the first one I've got is, what's the best way to access friendship groups to start that knock-on effect of customers buying tickets? So once one friend buys them, the rest follow.
Good question. Yeah, this is essential, really. It's about hitting that critical mass. So tactics you can do for this, running group ticket offers. So a 4 for 3 group ticket offer is a good way. So essentially the person that is the big name on campus, or is that person within the friend group who is the organizer, they effectively get their ticket free, or they can, if they're feeling generous, split the cost across. So that would be one tactic. I think the other thing as well is about making the information that these people who are going to be the lead bookers, who the information they're going to need to convince their friends, and making sure that's readily available on your socials, so that they, when they're messaging in their WhatsApp group chat, they can be like, hey, we want to book this festival. Accommodation starts from X amount per person per night. Flights are really cheap. I've seen some cheap flights going from Manchester, but make sure they've got all that as well as who's playing and everything else. So it makes it really easy for them to go and reach out to their friends. So those would be 2 tips I'll be looking for straight away.
Cool. We've had another one come in. What are the most important 3 things for a small festival with limited budget and marketing capacity to do?
Yeah, that's a tough question because it's like, what 3 things do you do? There's so much to do. But I think the first thing really is about building up that data. So if you haven't launched, running a strong pre-sale and getting that initial influx of pre-sale sign-ups. If you have launched, then can you run a competition? Can you amplify that through a partner? Just to really get data outside of your own audience. Because what that will do is it enables you to be less reliant on paid media, because you can actually own your data and reach people through email, as we've discussed, which is much more cost effective for a small festival. The other thing would be looking at partners. So whether that be media partners you can run ads from, I would avoid things like paying for mail shots and those sorts of things. The particular asset that you want from any media partnership is getting a video advert on their channel and getting advertiser access so you could promote it and put money behind it, or get them to promote it and invoice you. And then the final tip, which is really simple, but the reality is much harder to execute, is genuinely be remarkable. Ultimately, we all want to be that festival that's the hot ticket in town. We want people to be talking about us. And it's much easier to enable other people to do the marketing, but you can only do that by being truly remarkable. So whether it be, and this is a bit of a glib example, but the fact that even before I went to Glastonbury, I still knew the tales about secret pop-up set and Carl Cox playing down the rabbit warren and things like this. So what can you build into either your concept or the experience that people want to talk about? Because that word of mouth is going to be much more cost effective than paid media and any other marketing you're doing. So yeah, those would be my top 3.
Oh, thank you. We've got another one. How do we reach more potential customers on a budget?
So I think Caitlin had some really great points with this, but it was around making sure you're using discovery-based platforms such as TikTok or Reels on Instagram, where yes, the content does get distributed to your followers, but it prioritizes showing it to people that don't follow you as well. So that's going to enable discoverability. And then yeah, partner ads as well. You know, whether that be finding content creators that are creating content around your festival anyway, just for their friends, and seeing if you can sponsor that. As you saw from Caitlin's stats, it's a really cost-effective way, and often, well, not often, it is much cheaper than running similar ads from your own account. Same with running ads from paid media channels as opposed to your brand channel. A client we worked with recently, they ran the same ad from their brand channel, and then they found a media partner to run it from. And again, from the media partner, it was 5 times cheaper. So it just goes to show the power of those partnerships.
Thank you. Caitlin, did you have anything to add on that one, or did Rory cover it all?
Yeah, pretty much covered it. I think with something like TikTok, like you said, it's got potential to reach a lot more, a wider audience without actually putting much spend behind it. But when it does come to spend and you have got a limited budget, we have worked with clients that this has happened, and what I've done usually is just keeping it at a low level daily spend, just keeping it consistent. Just so the ads are always there. Like I said earlier, it's just tapping people on the shoulder and reminding them, and then it's retargeting audiences that have visited your profile as well. But yeah, I think the more content that you can get out organically would really help with that.
Thank you. I've got my last pre-question here, and then we'll move on to the chat after that. So we want some strategies with 1 month or less to go.
Okay, I'm going to assume that with 1 month or less to go, tickets aren't where they need to be, and answer it from that angle. And if that's the case, all is not lost. There are a few things you could do. One of those things would be to get some more tickets into the market, because then, as we've touched upon a few times in this session, once one person is going, no one's ever got a ticket to a festival and not told anybody they're going to that festival. I'd bank my house on that, or I'd bet my house on that. So how can we do that in a way that doesn't also alarm the audience and then think that, oh, actually this festival or event's not going to be well attended? A few tips we can do is give away guest lists from your artists or your talent at the festival. And it's important to position as guest list and not tickets, because straight away tickets seems like, oh, they've got spare tickets. Guest list feels a bit more exclusive. So reach out to your talent, offer them a handful of guest list spots, ask them to push that out on their own channels to their audience, so it's not coming from your channels. And again, the idea being that then some people are going to win this opportunity for guest list, and then they're going to be talking about it within their friend group, and they'll be talking to people who then might think, actually, they're going, oh, we'll get a ticket after all. A similar theory, but a different mechanic, is there's a few websites out there that give away tickets, one of those being Tickets for Good. So it's another way of getting tickets into the market. They give away tickets to charities, but it's sort of under the radar. So again, it's not cannibalizing your ticket sales or the perception that your event isn't selling. Finally, a little bit of a more overt one, but again, reaching out to partners and looking at doing a ticket giveaway, but being a bit more overt with it and doing it with like a big partner channel. We're really lucky that in Manchester, we've got some really big what's on pages. So the likes of I Love Manchester, Manchester's Finest, that have got like audiences in the hundreds of thousands. Predominantly people follow these accounts to see what's happening in the local area. And these are great for us to run partnerships with and do these sorts of giveaways. There are more springing up. Liverpool has some, Birmingham has some, London has them. So these are the sort of media channels that we're looking at, again, to do a big competition with the idea of getting additional visibility, but then also just giving the market that influx of tickets. So it just creates a little bit of a spike of social chatter and word of mouth.
Thank you. We're going to start going through the chat. So we've had a couple of questions around copyright issues with kind of reusing other people's content. I don't know how much you know about this, so yeah, but they're mainly, how can you get around repurposing other people's content as your own? Is there something you have to do, ask permission?
Yeah, I think there's so full disclaimer, not a copyright lawyer, so so I can't be held responsible for this. However, I guess the key points to note are, if you lift someone's video in its entirety and you're using it as a paid asset, then you're definitely going to get into trouble. However, if you are creating your own piece of content using multiple clips and taking footage and re-editing it in a new way, then it enters a bit of a grey area where you've got more of a foot to stand on. When it comes to so the artist content I said before, so finding footage and sharing it online, I wouldn't be running that as an ad. Generally speaking, if it's being shared online, it's unlikely you're going to run up against any issues, especially if you're not sponsoring it. But I would always credit these videos from where you found it. And if you want to be really safe, reach out to the people before actually posting it and say, hey, really love to use your video. It might be the case, particularly for some examples Caitlin shared, that there will need to be an exchange of money for it. But in my experience, most of the time, people are so flattered that their content is going to be used, especially if they're credited, that people often don't think to ask for money. Caitlin, do you have anything to add on that front?
Yeah, I think if say the content creator side of things is usually with other clients is sorted with like the PR team, or they've got a PR company that they work with, they're usually the middleman between the two. But if you'd seen a video on TikTok that really shows off your festival like so well, and you think that would really work well as an ad, definitely get permission from them first, and and then all you'd need is a code to end up boosting that. But yeah, I think something to consider as well is when your actual event and festival is on, you're always investing in photographers and videographers, but consider content creators as well whilst you're there, because with your next marketing campaign for the year, you've then got a bank of videos that is yours that you own, and you can just repurpose these in different ways. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely something to think about for your next festival.
Nice.
Cool, thank you. And for our members, I'll have a word with our legal helpline and see if I can get a little one page or something put together. This seems to have come up quite a lot, so that might be quite useful for everyone. So our next question is, how do you know if a TikTok campaign is working? The app seems to want to keep its audience inside TikTok. I think it's probably one for Caitlin.
Yes, so do you mean a TikTok like paid campaign or a social campaign? I mean, how do you know if TikTok campaign is working? I mean, you got to just keep testing with it. I think with TikTok, it's a really good opportunity to see what works with your audience, understand what doesn't. With adding the text overlays, which understands keywords on your videos and in your captions, that is serving your videos to people who are more likely to engage with it. One thing that I've seen as a tip as well is, if you had a load of keywords that you would use as hashtags, you can actually write them onto the video and just move them out the screen. That way TikTok is reading that the keywords are on there, but they're not actually visible. So that's something that I'd say to try testing in with your social, your organic strategy. But then with the paid side of things, it depends on what your your objectives are. So I'd usually start with, if you're starting from scratch, you're building your followers on there, so the algorithm has a better understanding of who your audience is, and then from that you can understand who a lookalike audience is, so you're reaching like a really wider audience, and then from that you've got an opportunity to target that specific audience with conversion campaigns. So yeah.
Just had a little follow-up saying, how do you know if the engagement is converting to sales?
Yeah, so with paid, you can implement a pixel on site, and the TikTok pixel you add onto site like you would with Facebook and Instagram, and then the conversion tracking is in the back end, so you can see which specific ad and video has contributed to how many sales and how much value you've got from that as well.
Thank you. Next question was, how much is the low-level spend you refer to on evergreen adverts?
I think that one is completely down to how much budget you actually have got. We'd usually just work out, say you've got X amount for X amount of months, how much is that divided by how many months are left, and then also considering the payment spikes around the week before payday. It's hard to put an actual figure on that if I don't know how long the hypothetical campaign and spend would be.
Cool, thank you. I'm just going to have a look and see what else we've got. Let me have a look. So we had one about early birds, but I think there's a sessions about mid-campaign. We'll just leave that one for now. I work for a festival production company, so our target audience is more the festivals and event promoters themselves. Do you think TikTok is still a useful space for us?
Yeah, so I that sounds like you're a bit more of a B2B business, but I think that would still be a really good platform for you to use if you are working with multiple different festivals and you're doing this amazing production. Showcase that, and it could be a bit like a show reel that you can add onto your website, and potential clients can go onto your website and then visually see the different types of production that you are capable of doing.
Thank you. We've got another. How do you measure the impact of your organic social efforts and decide what's working and what's not? Any particular tools and methods? So I assume that would be the pixel you already mentioned across platforms, but is there anything else?
Yeah, so for the paid side of things, it would be measuring the conversion trackings from the ads. So I work on paid rather than organic, but it's, I don't know if you have anything to mention on that, Rory.
I think it's about understanding your goals and then KPIs that support those goals. I think followers is always a little bit of a vanity metric, and I probably wouldn't get too concerned on followers. Once you pass, I think I would if I was initially starting, because it comes back to that idea of authority and trust and social proof. You want to get, you know, at least past, I would say, 1,000 followers, using Instagram as an example here, because then you think, okay, this account's legit. But then past that, I wouldn't stress about it too much, and I'd be more concerned in monitoring engagement. So after we've got maybe, I don't know, 9 to 20 posts, I then start looking at engagement rates. So total engagement divided by total followers, and work getting an idea of like, what is that base level of engagement, and monitoring that and keeping an eye on posts that see you drive more engagement, trying to do more of those, and then posts that fall well below that baseline of engagement, do less of those, and just be refining it that way. But I think, yeah, engagement, particularly comments, probably the most powerful metric, because that tends to give a bit more of an insight towards intent than just followers, because people might follow you with no intent of ever purchasing. But if people are kind of commenting and tagging friends in the captions and things, then you would argue that they are more likely to purchase, which at the end of the day, they sell tickets, right?
Cool, thank you. So we've got one last question, just because I'm conscious of time. And you know, if anyone has any further questions, I'm very happy to put you in touch with the Mustard team. But the last question in the chat was about Facebook event pages. So the actual event page for the festival has very low engagement numbers, but the ticket sales and engagement on the brand's main posts are okay and good on other platforms. Is it worth still trying to push the Facebook events page or not?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When I was at Defected Records, so back in 2016, like, we'd create an events page for every event. So all our festivals, all our domestic shows, all our international shows. I spent a lot of time creating events. And it's not such a thing anymore. I would say I probably wouldn't worry about it at all if I was going to spend time on doing something outside of the main brand page. I would look at Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups are still super powerful when it comes to community building. So you might have a group. You might have a group where it's like your inner circle of fans. You would incentivize people joining it as a private group by maybe you release things like set times ahead of time in there, so people get an early access, but they have to sign up for it, request access. That's a way of driving new members into that community, and then use it as a little bit of a sounding board. So if you're doing merch or naming your stages or previews of site maps, things like that, spend a bit of time moderating that audience, feeding feeding them with these kind of tidbits, because the benefit there is you've got a really engaged community, and this is what we've seen with several clients, should you ever have any negative sentiment online, so say queues were too big one year, or there was an issue with the toilets, these people that you've nurtured in the kind of private group will be the first to leap to your defense online, and you can't buy that at all. That's invaluable PR.
Cool, thank you very much. So that's the end of the session today. Thank you so much, Rory and Caitlin, for your time, and to Mustard as well. You can download the guide from their website. I'll send the link down to everyone that attended, and I'll send on the recording as well. But yeah, thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having us. Bye.